As always, Sunday afternoon, this is your reading for today. Today being December the 13th, Sunday. Today we will be introducing Chapter 5 of the novel 2020. And the episode number 5 is the last chapter for Part 1, also known as Act 1 of 2020. The name of this chapter that has been provided by our producers is Civilization Lost and Found. What does that mean? Well, in the introduction you had a little bit of a clue. It has to do with the indigenous peoples, in particular Black Elk Speaks, a very well-known book called Black Elk Speaks. There's more information about it you'll find in later episodes, but what it does is it introduces the concept of chapter 5 as a whole, Civilizations Lost and Found. What do we mean by that? Well, let me give you an idea of what the main theme of this chapter you will come to find to be. And it has to do with something that Harrison taught me many years ago, which is recounted in this particular journal entry that you'll find in chapter 5, starting at page 30. And it is the clash of the two civilizations, one being the European invaders of North America, and the other being the indigenous peoples that had lived here for thousands of years in balance with nature. Soon they became inundated by these European folk that their ways were quite a bit different than those of the indigenous peoples. The indigenous peoples were, by and large, honored the environment, honored the natural world, whereas the Europeans chose to dominate it, destroy it in their minds. Not destroying it exactly, they were exploiting it, you could say. That was their point of view, whereas the indigenous peoples had a different way of thinking of things. And so, as things developed, the indigenous peoples were being eviscerated by the white man. Pardon me, that's a documentary about the Trail of Tears. You'll find out more about that as we go along and you see more episodes. But anyway, yes, Civilization Lost and Found. The civilization of the indigenous peoples was lost to us, and they are still there. They're not completely destroyed, but almost. And so my good friend and mentor Harrison came to teach me about the civilization of the various First Nations that existed in North America before the white man came. And part of his point was that we had things to learn. We had things to learn from people like Black Elk and other leaders of the Seattle, Chief Seattle, has a very famous saying, thoughts that he shared. But here we are, here you are, at the end of the year 2020, and you're hoping, please let this be over, and hoping that things will go back to the way they were? Is that what you were thinking? Did you really want to go back to the way things were? Because I have news for you. It is not going to get better. These things are not going to go away. The things that the humans, mainly the European invaders, people like us, have done to the environment aren't going to just go away by themselves. And we have to learn to deal with the consequences. And so you're thinking, perhaps you're thinking, gee, 2020, it's the end of December 2020. You're about ready to start a new year. You're working your way into a decade that is part of the Anthropocene, which is the epoch in geological history. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong, but whereby human degradation of the environment has begun to affect the environment in ways that are not very good. So, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's changing. Now you can stop what you're doing, and that will lessen the impact for future generations. And in fact, you're going to find that you have to stop. You can't, because you just can't sustain this. You cannot sustain what you've been doing all these decades, centuries. You have to change. Think about it for a moment. 2020, what has happened? I was looking at the manuals and I see you had swarms of locusts in Africa. You had one of the worst hurricane seasons ever, stretching beyond, you used to name, well, yeah, y'all still name storms, and you ran out of names, so you had to start using the Greek alphabet because you had so many, and so many ferocious storms. You have wildfires raging that you've never seen before. Do you think all that, oh, it's just going to go away because it's just this bad year, we're having a bad year, gonna get better? Nope, it's not. So, anyway, time to start reading from chapter, what's known as chapter 5, Captain's Log 20-0005, The Hermitage. It's on a Monday. Today I found myself marching out to the kayak launch to start the new addition to the exercise routine for this old body of mine. This was to be my maiden voyage, so to speak. Nothing fancy or too involved, just paddle around the series of waterways we had dug out over the years to handle the influx of water from the bay, while at the same time creating a blue way, a means to get around from place to place in a way that made things easier and used up less energy, except the human-generated kind, that is. I figured I could kill two birds with one stone by touring the village and surrounding areas on the Blue Way, making mental notes, yeah, more of those things that I tend to make and then, of course, forget later, of areas on the canals that need repair or work to keep them up to snuff. At the same time, I'd be working this old body of mine to get it up to snuff too. The idea came to me a few weeks back. Now, here I am, manifesting it into reality. Yes, dear reader, there is such a thing as manifesting your own reality, and that applies to you personally or the world around you. You can manifest things if you put your mind to it. So, here I had manifested myself exercising in a kayak and killing two birds with one stone. Bad expression, I know, but it's, I manifested it into reality. I started ruminating about the standoff at the OK Moat with Peabody and Barney, the deputy, which then led me to start rummaging around through some of the manuals in the study at the Hermitage to refresh my recollection on the whole silly incident that happened that day. There wasn't much I found about the incident itself, but plenty about how and why the moat was put there in the first place, and, later on, over the years, the system of canals and the rest of the blueways that came to be. The journals recorded incidents and information, telling the story of how the Hermitage came about, and later the village, the blueways, and a lot of other things that led us to where we are nowadays. Sort of like what I am doing right now with the words that I'm reading to you. I took to calling the journals the Harrison Chronicles on account of the fact that is the person who was writing them before I took over doing that for him. And maybe for posterity, I reckon. Not that anyone would read them after I am gone. Not sure exactly when I had seen some of the chronicles for the first time. That must have been one day not that long after the standoff at the OK Moat. As things turned out, the standoff was an important turning point in my life. After that day, I felt as though I was welcome into the Hermitage. Not that I was exactly invited over to visit and chit-chat by the Amazon. No, sir. She was not the chatty type to begin with. Besides which, there was a lot to be done around the place. I knew I would have to either offer to pitch in and help or stand back and get out of the way. There was no time for tomfoolery around that place. Okay, well, that leads you into the rest of Chapter 5 that explains what happened next. And that would be the first time that I met the hermit. So, you want to find out more about that? Tune in next time, or better yet, get the book and read all about it. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you next Sunday.